Hello and welcome everyone to the Business Q&A sessions. We've had a bit of a summer hiatus. I'll be unveiling what's been going on in that time in coming webinars, but I'm really pleased to be here. And today I'm here with our guest speaker, Jo Ellen. Hi, Jo Ellen.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I've missed you.
Oh, thank you for saying that. I've really missed this session, and I wish I could say I'd been off doing some big project, but we've just had some illness and things like that, which actually I'm sure all our audience can relate to in some way. But it really teaches us about headspace and prioritization. And it's been such a positive sign up today. And it hopefully that means absence does make the heart grow fonder. But also a really, really important and current topic, which today for the next 30 or 40 minutes, Jo Ellen and I are going to be speaking with you all about, and I'm going to read it word for word, are you and your people ready for the hybrid working model? So just to do some housekeeping, Jo Ellen, I'll just run everyone through the setup. As I said, about 30 to 40 minutes. Jo Ellen and I will be talking about our individual approaches. We both come at this from different perspectives, which is great, because we hope that you as attendees can take things away that you can apply into your world straight away. But to make it even more effective, we've got a chat box. We like this to be as interactive as possible. It's really easy. I'm literally going to type a hello now, and hopefully you can all see that. So please share comments, thoughts, questions, anything that's going to help you get more out of today's session with Jo Ellen and I. We've also got a poll going on, again, for all of you who are long-standing attendees of the Q&A sessions. We always like to get a feel for what you're going through right now. And again, it helps us to not only make sure today is valuable, but future webinars can really fix some of the challenges you have. And my God, Jo Ellen, so far, if you haven't put your thoughts in, please do. I'll share the results at the end of the poll. But Jo Ellen, the poll asks, what are you and your people currently finding a challenge with hybrid working? The options are communication, people being in two different locations, Zoom, face-to-face, not everyone being together, mental well-being, the transition and how people are being affected. The third one is performance management. So the fact is that by working in different places, I mean, God, we've been going through it for the last pretty much 18 months, but it's going to shift again now, isn't it? Collaboration, and then trust through fair management. And we were trying to kind of explain what we meant by that. But Jo Ellen, if you can just bring up what you meant by that.
Well, it hasn't happened in my organization, but what I've heard anecdotally is it's not fair. Someone is getting preferential treatment. Why do I have to come in and sit on public transport when, my colleague who used to sit next to me is working from home? So I think that's what we were trying to get. We couldn't quite figure out the right phrase. But there is a sense of, that's not fair. And when things are so sensitive right now, that's really important to look at.
Absolutely. And when we talked today, we've broken down our webinar today into 3 areas. Obviously, it all blends in. But first of all, we've said that we'll cover what organizations should be thinking about when considering their hybrid strategy. We've also then listed that we're going to talk about the impact of hybrid working on the mental well-being of people as they transition. And also we've got 5 pointers on how to smoothly transition your people back to the office, because the hybrid coming out of lockdown and the hybrid approach, I mean, it's like starting from scratch, I think.
What's interesting is it could be starting from scratch if people took that attitude. And in a way, it would be healthier if we said, what would happen if we started just from a baseline now, rather than trying to return to normal? Yeah. So you've almost got workplace revolution, back to normal, or something in between. I guess that's why the word hybrid keeps coming up.
Yeah.
Because if you try to, my view, or our view as a training company, if you try to replicate what you had before, you're going to get such pushback. That was in your blurb about already 40%. Are working to some kind of hybrid. That will go up. I mean, and we know this is not anecdotal. Those companies that have been forcing people or saying you must return to the office, they're getting pushed back like never before. Goldman Sachs had to backpedal, Apple had to backpedal.
Yes. Well, something that we're finding, obviously, on the recruitment arm of our business, is that one of the reasons for leaving is that people don't feel that they want to work for an organization who haven't evolved, who aren't forward thinking, who don't value their people. And unfortunately, hybrid working for employees, and as you said about the workplace revolution, there is a revolution going on here. Because employees have been empowered. So now people are saying, I'm leaving because I can't have a hybrid working environment. Obviously, that wasn't there before the pandemic. People had a preference, but they didn't feel that they had a right to request, whereas now they do.
Also, you had, there was at the beginnings of a shift in sort of millennials and then Gen Z.
Yes.
Were questioning the paradigm.
Yes.
Questioning, does this work anymore? Is this what I really want? Do I want a job for life? Well, that's been a question certainly for a couple of generations now. But now people are saying, but I want more than the 9 to 5. Yeah. So it was already happening, and then it got accelerated, and you used the word empowerment. Even though it was enforced change, us having to all go into lockdown, people got very creative. And even though it might have been hell for some people with juggling, kids and homeschooling and all of that, the feedback has been so much around my life works better. And I gave you this example. It's tiny. It's not a major thing, but I love doing the New York Times crossword puzzle. As anyone can tell, my accent isn't British yet, even though I've been here 40 years. But I love the challenge of the New York Times crossword puzzle. I also like take a break, sit in my little rocker, look out my window, and read a book. Yeah. I wouldn't do that in the office. No. Who would do that in the office? And I own the business. But there is something about I make my day work for me. And so, and I think that that's what a lot of people did. I don't work 9 to 5. I might be available 9 to 5, but I'm not doing the thing that I used to do.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that. People became empowered because when we all went into this lockdown, the guidance, and that's why we started this webinar series, was to help employers with an uncharted territory, an uncharted journey. But employees had to take control to be able to deliver even under these crazy circumstances. But the productivity in the majority improved for organizations. And I know, we can't say this about retail, hospitality. I mean, those sectors, travel, we know those sectors have been massively impacted. But looking at our network in the world of predominantly office-based work, businesses and people have found a way. And I think that's a lesson to learn, because the trust and confidence that has built between organizations and their employees, I think that's got to be the basis upon which businesses build their strategy. Yeah. People management strategy. Obviously, as an organization, you've got to do what you choose to do. But when you link where you want to go with the people that are going to get you there, help them understand the whys of why you're bringing them back in this way. I'm a big fan of the job description. If there's one thing that I think is really underutilized, is the JD. And actually, the JD has to evolve. If people are going to be working from home, their competencies such as time management, communication skills, being a self-starter, all of these competencies have started to evolve. Yeah. But now businesses are pushing forward at warp speed. Yeah. So the pressure on people is going to grow. So as I think you talked about your top tips, actually, and you've got 5 top tips you're going to be sharing with us. But to give a prelude, I think you said make sure that mental well-being of your people is the priority through this. And I agree, as a consultancy that helps our clients attract talent and then equally retain it, this is the tool that's going to help employers do that. So number 1 is clarity. Tell your people where you're going, help them understand how they fit into that. And we've been helping our clients write presentations for people, because you don't want to over strategize it either. It's got to work. So probably break it down into different teams, how you talk to them. Go circle back to where you are with that, probably monthly. And Jo Ellen, even though we're talking about the hybrid world, there's not many people who are doing that yet. I still can't believe how many clients I'm speaking to who are saying, no, we're going to start in September. People can come in if they want to, but we're just sort of, and we've got the offices open, but we're not making anyone come in yet. And it's a game. I don't understand. For our team, we've made it available. We've now put a bit more structure, but obviously it has to be based on their safety and mental strength and their feeling that it's going to help them. But it's a funny time.
We both put on our glasses to look at it. This is women of a certain age here. I think I'm a little older.
Exactly.
A lot older than you.
Yeah, no, we've got a comment. So
yes, absolutely, Chris. Well, first, thank you so much, Tosh. Lovely to have you out there on the other side. Usually, I'm watching you.
Yeah,
this is Chris. This is so true. I think the reality has always been that people in work do not actually work all the time. They are sat at their desk.
Yes.
What's different now is that we're feeling a bit tired. We can go do something totally different. We have one of our trainers. They're so brilliant, Chris, because that's absolutely true. There are many studies that people maybe do a third of the work that's expected when they're in the office, if not less.
Wow.
But one of our trainers is a neuroscientist, and she talks about the brain and what the brain needs to feel good, and how hybrid working or at least certainly working from home or making hybrid work for people it makes the brain happy. The brain doesn't like to do something more than 1 hour to 90 minutes. It needs a different kind of stimulation. It doesn't mean doing another task at your computer. It means doing something differently or different.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because we look at these big brands like Google and Apple, and they create these villages. And one of the reasons, obviously, is that they want their employees to work 24/7 and never need to leave campus. But the other thing is that people, like we talk about the water cooler moments, making a cup of tea, going over to someone's desk. And as we know, even by just saying, hey, how are you doing? 2 or 3 minutes of chat, talking about the problem, then going back to your desk, you've broken that cycle. So, Chris is absolutely right. And when you spoke about the New York Times puzzle, maybe at the office, it would be making a cup of tea and debriefing or decompressing with someone, whoever you bump into in the kitchen at that time.
I'm going to just challenge that, because often it doesn't always happen, but are we decompressing about work, or are we actually having something that's totally different that takes our mind? That's one of the reasons why I do the things that I do, because it gets my mind away from work. Because I think often in the physical work environment, we don't take those step back and just breathe moments. It's sort of an expectation, and it's an old paradigm, one of my top 5s. Yeah. It's an old paradigm of that 9 to 5, sit at your desk, do your work, go home. Yeah. And even though we know that people gossip and they chat and they do all those things and they go to lunch together or have drinks afterwards, it's still a very particular formulaic way of working that needs challenging.
Yeah, it's business first, isn't it? For those 9 to 5, 9 to 6, 8 or 7, different, but it all comes back to one word for me, and that's culture.
Yeah.
Because perhaps what some organizations didn't have was the balance of the individual holistically as well as professionally. And that really does reflect, I talk a lot about this triangle where a person, when they're really vibing and doing well in their life, would spend a third of their time on their business, a third of their time on themselves, and a third of their time on their family, friends, the people that are important to them. The challenge of work is that some organizations only want you to bring your work person to that space. Whereas now, I think, again, we spoke about relationships and trust and confidence having improved during the lockdown approach, is that many businesses have become more holistic in their people management. And so when people think about their hybrid approach, I think we need to revisit culture. So not just where you're going as a business in terms of your projects, your targets, but also what you stand for as an employer for how you treat your people. And I've got a great culture exercise, which I'm sure some of you have already heard me speak about, which really is as a culture from top down, bottom up, for the people, by the people. But ultimately, it makes people feel part of a tribe. And the more belonging you feel, it's like an extended family. Some extended families are all around the world, but we're back for that annual reunion. Yeah, there's a few challenging relationships. You all feel part of something, even when you're not together. And that's what an employer has to now work at and create by intention. And what you said, you're right, Jo Ellen, don't throw out the book and start again, but look at what's good and keep that. And then think about what needs to be added to help employees feel really part of something, because that's going to help with the communication. That's going to help with performance.
Yeah. And it also helps with loyalty. It was interesting. You know, we had the very difficult decision to make people redundant last year. We've kept in touch with most everybody. And someone came up to Suffolk and we had lunch the other day, and she said, you know, how much she misses the company. And she chose to actually look at a complete career change, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm very supportive of it. But she said Impact Factory is just one of those places that I've never been able to find again. That was collaborative, that just created both a business, you know, recognizing the business need, but also making it more like a family, making it that people's well-being, you know, one of my 5 things is, and you just said it, about how well-being is so important, and we are now being able to talk about it. So many organizations, it's like this afterthought, or it's over in HR. It's not a day-to-day kind of link to how people are.
Yeah, it's not a button that it's not a switch that you put turn on and off. It's an underlying reassurance that we're going to make sure you're okay personally and professionally.
Yeah.
And, you know, we talk about ideas, we talk, you know, people can make notes, we're going to send this video as a recording. But if there is something specific that you want to cover, if it is how to manage your people, let's get these job descriptions right. Let's really do a reflection exercise and a bit of coaching around what competencies are going to look good for a hybrid employee. Let's look at their role, and let's look at what parameters you want to measure as successful. Because again, the way you measure success when somebody's hybrid versus being in the office, it's going to evolve. So leave nothing to chance, revisit that approach. And some of the training that we've been doing is around helping managers take their people through that journey, and then the follow-up performance management. And for me, the number one commitment I think any manager needs to make to their people is consistency.
Yeah.
So deliver the new JD, work on it together. And if you then say we're going to have a weekly touch point on this, have that weekly touch point, have a formal or informal structure. Just make sure there are no surprises, because I think that's where people feel unsettled.
Yes, years and years ago, we were brought into one of those reward companies, and they wanted a whole thing around performance management. And that was exactly the best surprise is no surprise. Yeah. And again, if you look at a collaborative, one of my 5 points, it's not, let's have a weekly touch point. What touch point would work for you?
Yeah.
And it is around having the dialogue, because all the while we, I think, get farther away from the patriarchal paradigm of top straight down, and it isn't even a matrix. It's just it's like a lovely web that works together.
Yes.
Rather than
it's two ways
that is fixed.
Yeah, it's about empowering people, because as we've seen, we all got thrown into working from home. Nobody thought it would work, and actually, every majority of employees rose to the challenge. And by being given that trust, they actually gave more, but probably from working less hours or being at their desk less, but they had more to give. And it's interesting what you say about creativity, because I think if we move into the mental well-being of people, I think that the ability to decompress and to have some creative time is actually good for people's mental well-being. It's like the brain when it sleeps, it kind of files everything that's happened that day, and then in the next morning you've got that blank page again. And I think that with hybrid working, it's going to bring some benefits, so more collaboration, but it's going to bring equally more questions, isn't it? And that's going to impact people's well-being, mental well-being.
I think that the key that we all know on one level is that one size is never going to fit all. We've had a paradigm where we try to cram one size fits all, 9 to 5, 8 to 4, whatever it's been. It's still a box. So we know that that people having had that experience of something else. I'll just give you a small example from Learning at Work Week, one of your webinars, where lovely Susan Gayton said, I get to do the school run now.
Yeah.
Okay. So what would happen if she was allowed to do the school run?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not that she had to work from home or but what would happen if that flexibility allowed that as long as her work got done, as opposed to you missed the school run because she loved it. She loved having that extra time with her children. So that's a small example, but I think, again, let's look, what are the 2 or 3 things that would make your life feel good or better or more effective if you do decide to come back, or decide if it works out that you come back to the office? What are some of the things that would make what you enjoyed in your home life or home working to the office? Or so those are the kinds of questions that need to be asked.
Yeah.
Is not just, I'm going to tell you what you need to do, but let's see if it's feasible. Is it feasible for you to do, you're going to tell me 3 things that would make life better for you.
Yeah.
And then together we can say, well, this is the reason why it is feasible, or this is the reason why it isn't.
Exactly. And I have to say, we went through our own challenge and we tried to bring somebody new into our world who we said, yeah, absolutely, you can fit in some school runs in the week, and you'd have to make that time up outside of those school runs. And we tried to communicate that really clearly. And what we said is, as you're learning your role, and this is a practical example for anyone out there, because we talk about ideas and approaches, but the factual results can sometimes be very difficult. And that's why I'm very open to sharing our wins and our challenges, because this employee said, well, I like, this new employee, should I say, who didn't know our world, started on a hybrid basis, sort of said, well, these are the days I'd like to do. And it was a case of, okay, well, yes to these. This one's going to be a challenge. Can you fit that in somewhere else? So maybe the same number of roles, drop-offs and pickups, but not necessarily on those days. And started off well, but unfortunately what happened was that they couldn't make up the work, and especially because they knew everything's like a steep learning curve at the start.
Yeah.
So we spoke about restructuring the remuneration package to give them that space, but we couldn't work it out. And in the end, they said, you know what, it doesn't feel like we're going to align. And I was so disappointed, because if we had just got that transitionary period and we communicated and it was clear and we got on, and wasn't the role, but it was just that even though there was a commitment to hybrid working, they had their set times, and as a business we had set meetings that needed all
yes.
So we got to do our best. And this is what I was going to say about hybrid working and keeping that fair. What we spoke about, one person saying, well, that person's got this, why don't I, is having a mantra, having a mission statement around our approach to hybrid working will create the following. And I haven't done this yet, and I'm thinking actually we should put it into place, because our old approach doesn't necessarily fit the new way. But if employees then see that, yes, despite A getting that, B getting that, it fits under this roof. And when somebody says, well, why? We go back to that mantra and we say, well, our objective is to be the best, the most loved, or the most effective at this. Our objective is to have our employees be part of the journey, not cogs in a wheel. And we want to do that by being as holistic in our support of their personal and professional lives. Whatever each employer creates, then they can relate back to that. And that hopefully will allow people to choose, because before, people pretty much chose a job based on what that company stood for, what their personal career goals were, and where that aligned, bingo, they met and they pushed forward. Now it's not just the why, it's the how.
Yes. And I think that it's great that that you're talking about things that didn't work out, because it's never going to all work out perfectly for everybody. It's not possible.
Yeah, we've kept the door open and said, let's revisit this in a few months. Yeah. So all is not lost. but there are going to be hiccups along the way. And I think if you have a basis that every employee understands is your blueprint for hybrid working, then they trust, and we spoke about the best surprise is no surprise. That's what that creates.
Yeah. And that goes back to your poll, which was, I think it's still, let's see, is performance management has gone down, communication and collaboration have gone up.
You know, it's pretty split, isn't it? So communication and collaboration are top. Next are performance management and trust through fair management, which in a way is performance management, because it's a two-way street. They may not be performing because they feel that there's, you know, something that isn't quite right for them. And we know that performance challenges are either training or communication and trust and confidence. So it's interesting. And mental well-being actually at the moment is bottom. But what I would say about that is, just because people aren't bringing it to you, don't assume it's not there. I would ask you to do a survey. Make sure you have a mental health first aider. There are really great online not call centers, but helplines that you can give the number to your employees of, to say, look, if you know, yes, I'm your manager. Yes, there's a mental health first aider. And if you don't want to talk to somebody within the organization, there's also this, because we don't want to lose people or lose connections with people because they didn't feel that they could bring forward their mental health. And I think I'm really resilient. I think I can talk about my feelings, overtalk and overshare about my feelings. And yet I have really felt the shift, not just as a business owner and my responsibility to my people, but my own challenge, which is that actually, you know what, Jo Ellen, I've spent more time with my kids than ever, you know, and my children are now 17 and the twins are 14. So I'm feeling the anxiety of, well, what if I have to go back and not see them, you know? So it's okay to talk about what's bothering you. And I always found it hard to share the challenges as well as the wins, but something that I've decided in my hiatus is that authenticity is the biggest gift we can give, personally and professionally. So I'm going to try and lead with that. And that will help every employer, whether it's strategy, whether it's mental well-being. Share some of your own challenges as a manager, as an employer. People will realize that if you can talk about it, then the mental well-being of people is on the agenda and they can come forward.
Yes, it's role modeling behavior, isn't it? The role modeling behavior that you want of other people, rather than this is what I expect of you, but you know, I'm doing my thing over here.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. So we're coming up to the final third of our session today, and we promised that we would give everyone 5 top pointers for a smooth transition. And as we already can see from my examples and some of the ones you've been speaking about, it's relative, this smoothness, isn't it? It's about stacking the odds in favor of a smooth transition and putting everything in place so there's less incidences and less challenging incidences. There's always going to be things to deal with, but it's having the tools to do that. So, Jo Ellen, I know you've put your thoughts together on that.
So I mean, we've covered pretty much all of these, but it's about being open to a new paradigm. Is that if you try to go back to normal, it ultimately, or even immediately, it probably won't work. We've talked about this being collaborative and creative. So your people, my people, come up. I mean, they've saved our bacon. It's not just Robin and I, my business partner, but it's the team that's come up with the creative ways of working.
That's something I'm going to take back to the business, actually, which again, I think where we've been sort of all spread out and where we've been almost a little bit firefighting during the pandemic. Now, I think what we could all do with is more, hate the word, brainstorms, mind showers, call it what you want, but a collaborative, what do you see? Because everyone sees things that is from a different perspective and brings such quality and value. And I think I'd forgotten about that. So thank you. I am actually going to talk about a team brainstorm.
Yeah. And then just someone will come up, well, what would happen if let's try that. You said this, discuss the business, let people know what's going on in the business. Don't hide it. If things are good, let people know they're good. If they're not good, or if they're in between, so that they can see how they fit in. Sometimes businesses sort of keep employees at arm's length in understanding what's going on. do it in bite-sized chunks so people know what's going on.
Yes. And you know, what you said about that, I think is really important, because sometimes, as you said, employees feel when managers or employers have got good news or bad news. They can feel when things are being kept from them. Lots of closed door meetings, again, with the hybrid approach. No one's experienced that as much, but they will feel it when a manager almost starts talking about something they didn't talk about before, and they're thinking, well, why has this become important all of a sudden? And again, that stops them. The story and the explanation starts with, here's where we are. This is what you're doing really well. As a business, we now need to be here. So we need to adjust the percentages of time or how or prioritization. Then employees get it, and they want to then deliver the success for the organization. So it's this, it all comes back. My theory is everything comes back to communication. And that has to be top of the agenda right now, doesn't it? So that was your third one.
That was my third one. The fourth one you've already said, but we'll just repeat it. Make everyone's well-being a priority, not an add-on. Not this thing we squeeze on, but actually it's part of the organization and part of the way that we work with our people is taking care of them, because they will take care of the business.
Yeah.
And my fifth one is just keep reviewing, be flexible. It's not fixed in stone. You'll review it next week and it will look different.
Yes. And the words I use for that is be honest as an employer and say, look, hybrid working is new to us, but we want to embrace a successful model. That model will have many versions. And so we're going to start with consultation, start with a brainstorm, get the ideas. We can't do all the ideas, but we will consider all the ideas. And then we're going to keep what works and let go of what doesn't. And then make sure that as an employer, whether it's weekly or monthly touch points, you have a bit of a you said we did. So these are some of the ideas. We put this in place. These are the ones that stayed and worked. These are the ones that didn't. We're now trying this. And it's not about, we can't find, we can't work out what's right. It's about acknowledging that being creative and ever evolving and innovating is part and a healthy part of being in a good business. So I think people will then not say, they keep moving the goalposts. No, we're evolving and we're bringing you along with that journey. Yeah. And it's okay to try things that don't work, but I think what you said about bite size, don't reinvent the wheel every time. It's got to be an 80-20 approach to the structure.
Well, we always say at Impact Factor when we're doing our training is the smallest change for the biggest impact. You don't have to throw everything out. Just make the adjustments that people will go, oh, that's great. I like that. That can work now.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, Jo Ellen, I have just, we've got a comment actually. Chris says, I think we need to move on from talking of hybrid or remote working towards effective working. Very true. This will allow us to explore all the ways that will enable us all to be effective and allow the flexibility that you and I have spoken of today. Yeah. Thank you, Chris. And absolutely. And you know what? If there's any tip that I would then bring to the top of the priority list, it's about, as an organization, get your strategy right. Whether you decide to share the 1 year or the short-term 3-month strategy. For us, I think it will be short-term because the landscape is changing so much. And then feeding it back down to management and then employees and really aligning their job description and personal objectives as well as their professional development to achieve them at individual level. So use that job description, establish what training or coaching they need, and keep those touch points going. And that will absolutely get it to effective working. Yeah. That's what we need.
It's great. Great. Well done, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. And thank you, everyone, for joining today. I'm just going to say, I think you should all be able to see the results of the poll. And what's really interesting is what started as the priority is no longer the number one challenge. Not surprisingly, and Jo Ellen, this was your suggestion, collaboration is the top challenge with 33% of employers feeling that challenge. What would you say about collaboration? How would you talk about
Don't be afraid of it. I think in my experience as a businesswoman, a business owner for 30 years, is that people like to know where they stand. They like to know what's going on, and they want to give their ideas. Yeah. Particularly they're on the coalface. I mean, these days I'm on the coalface too.
Me too.
But, well, I haven't been on the coalface for a while, but I do think that they're the ones on doing the day-to-day stuff. They'll have great ideas, tiny little things that will say, why didn't we think of it? Well, we didn't. They did. Great. Fantastic. That to me is what collaboration is that it's a two-way process.
Absolutely. And I think have your team meetings. Don't scrimp thinking half are in, half are out. We won't do it. Continue to use the technology available. If people are working from home, get everyone on. You'll have some together. You'll have some on screens. It's working towards success. And then collaborate and reflect on how that worked. So don't be afraid to keep those sort of face-to-face team environments going where people can share. Because, I'm just going to give you a story that my chairman actually told me. He told me that there was a police station where they got rid of the canteen and the rate of solving crimes went down. And what they realized was that people would be anecdotally talking about what's going on in their world over a coffee, and they would link information that then would lead to success and solving of crimes. So don't underestimate the power of communication through collaborative environments, through team catch-up, through brainstorms, and through continually evolving. It's got to be a brave new world, and they say fortune favors the brave and the bold. I think that's how we've got to embrace this approach to hybrid and effective working.
Right.
Wonderful. Well, Jo Ellen, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Love it. I always glad coming along.
Oh, it's wonderful. And thank you everyone who's joined today. And we hope to see you this time next week again. We're going to have Tosh
jumping in. Tosh.
Not next week, but Tosh. We're going to have Tosh coming in, I think, towards the end of August. He might be doing a guest spot on the 12th, but we're back. We'll be here weekly, and we look forward to sharing more insight into helping you have a really successful business environment. Thank you all. And thanks, Jo Ellen. Good to see you.
Thank you.
All the best. Bye for now.